the White House. Let's get some more on all of this. The number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, the Minority Whip, Steny Hoyer, is joining us. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Wolf. Glad to be with you.
First of all, what's your reaction? I don't know if you've gone through the new Congressional Budget Office report, the scoring of this current Republican legislation. If you have, what's your reaction to it?
Well, the bill keeps getting worse and worse. And, of course, the deficit reduction the Republicans were claiming has now been halved by the changes they've made. So not only are the same 24 million people are going to lose their insurance, not only are you going to pay more and get less coverage, not only is the age tax in there, so if you're older, you're going to pay a lot more than you do now. But they've also reduced their claim that they're reducing the deficit. So this bill just keeps getting worse and worse. If they dragoon people into voting for this bill, it's going to be a bad vote, because the other thing that's happening is it becomes more and more unpopular every hour that goes by. Quinnipiac just did a poll, Wolf, you probably saw it, which now says that 56% of Americans think this is a bad bill, and only 17% of them think it's a good bill. The other 26 an opinion, but it's clear that it's moving in the wrong direction for the Republicans, and they continue to be a deeply divided party.
But, Congressman, how nervous are you, despite everything you just said, that in the end the President, the Speaker, the Republicans will have the votes to pass this health care bill, the first step in repealing and replacing Obamacare?
Well, one would think, Wolf, that with all that firepower, they would have already gotten the bill done. You would have thought that they would have already convinced people to be for this bill. It's not going to be voted on today. They chose this day as a message, not as a strategy, but as a message that this was the day on which the Affordable Care Act was adopted, and they were going to show their people that on the day of the anniversary, they were going to repeal. They haven't been able to do that. And they've had the President saying he was for this bill. They've had the Speaker saying he was for this bill. They've had their leadership saying this is for the bill. The problem they've got is the people are not for this bill. It's a bad bill. It makes the insurance stability that people had as a result of the Affordable Care Act, frankly, disappear. And they're very angry and very nervous and very apprehensive.
So let me ask you this, Congressman. Are you reaching out, you're the Minority Whip, to centrist or moderate Republicans who are nervous about it? Well, in other words, what is the Democratic leadership in the House doing?
Watching a divided party.
So you're just watching from the sidelines? I know all the Democrats in the House are going to oppose it, but if you really hate it so much, isn't there more you could be doing than simply watching it?
Hate it. We think it's bad legislation, bad policy, and we also think it's bad politics. Now, while I haven't reached out, I will tell you a number of Republicans have talked to me about their concerns about this bill and their opposition to this bill. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but so while I may not have reached out, I have had contact with a number of them who've talked to me about how uncomfortable they are on both sides. Some think this bill hurts too many people, and some thinks, frankly, and they wouldn't say it this way, doesn't hurt enough people. In other words, doesn't cut enough benefits, doesn't make premiums more expensive and deductibles higher, and millions of people without insurance. So they've got a conundrum. They've got both sides of their party that is very, very uncomfortable with this bill. And Jason Amash, one of the most conservative members in the caucus, said this is the worst bill he's seen since he's been in Congress. So this is a bad bill. It's a bad vote for them. And if they get enough muscle behind some of these members and force them to vote for it, they're going to find it's a very, very uncomfortable vote in a country that is now 3-1 against it.
Yeah, Congressman Justin Amash of Michigan. What sort of tactics, Congressman, are you preparing for if the bill removes what you would regard as truly essential health benefits, the provisions for truly essential health benefits?
Well, we're going to make it very clear to the members and to the American people what that means. It means hospital services, emergency services. It means prescription drugs availability, mental health services. Essential benefits simply says, look, we're not going to have people selling phony policies at low prices, which really give no coverage. There are some things that are essential, and very frankly, when people buy insurance, they think is going to be insured. And then unfortunately, they bought a cheap policy, they have a serious illness, they go to the hospital, and the insurance company says, gee whiz, that's not covered. And then, frankly, they're put into bankruptcy. We don't want to see that happen. We think that the policies ought to cover what real people face in terms of expenses, sure that they are healthy or when they're sick can get healthy again.
Congressman, President Trump, and you've heard it many times, he's repeatedly said that if the GOP health care bill doesn't pass, Republicans can simply sit back and let Obamacare fail. He says it's been a disaster. It's going to fail on his own politically. That would be wise. Will Democrats own the blame for that if that were to happen, if Obamacare simply self-destructs as the Republicans claim it will?
Well, this bill is TrumpCare. And if TrumpCare fails, and they administratively and by talking down the confidence in the insurance market, they will own the failure here. It will not be the Affordable Care Act's failure, because the Affordable Care Act has brought prices down. There are some places where we need to fix, where choices have been limited. We need to work on that. In part, that has happened because the Republicans undermined our risk insurance and risk sharing within the insurance industry, because it was a new program and determining prices was going to be tough. So we anticipated that, but the Republicans undermined that. Why? Because they're trying to kill indirectly something that they have not been able to kill directly, and that is affordable, quality health care for all Americans. And very frankly, the President, in my view, probably has no idea what's in this bill. He promised the American people that everybody would be covered. Everybody would be covered. Not just have access, that everybody would be covered. They'd be covered at a lower price and higher quality. Frankly, he has not offered any bill that any fair-minded analysis would say accomplishes the objective he set forth.
All right. And I know you want to continue, but I quickly want to get your reaction to another important development, Congressman, involving the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. Do you believe he, the chairman, needs to step down given what happened yesterday?
Look, I want to know more of the facts, but I think what happened yesterday was bizarre and unfortunate, and was a very bad judgment on Mr. Nunes' behalf. What I think ought to happen, however, is that we ought to have an independent commission. This is a very, very serious allegation. And some of the information that's come today, where there may well be evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, which I would think every American would reject out of hand, thinking that was damaging to the national interest and a despicable act for a candidate to be colluding with a country that can be certainly described as our adversary and maybe described as our enemy, that the Americans would reject overwhelmingly. So what we need is an independent commission, like the 9/11 Commission, bipartisan, with subpoena power and the ability to get to the bottom of what clearly FBI Director Comey and others have raised as very, very legitimate questions of national security. So that's what I think ought to happen. And it's clear that I don't think Mr. Nunes can lead an investigation that will have credibility in a bipartisan way and get to the bottom of this.
Congressman Steny Hoyer of Maryland, thanks very much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Wolf.
All right, just ahead, we got more breaking news.